elevated character, story, and third-person action.
My name's Leon. I'm under the President's order to rescue you.
I've been very fortunate to go to Japan many times simply because I'm in the video game industry. And every time I've gone, I've fallen in love with the food, the architecture, the culture, and especially the people. My favorite Japanese game creator is Gunpei Yokoi. He's the creator of the Game Boy and also the producer on Metroid, and through his work with Miyamoto and his own productions has influenced millions and millions of gamers around the world. If you'd like to help with earthquake relief in Japan, please donate to the Red Cross through our website at gamersheartjapan.com.
Japan is this place that is crazy, cool, it's still traditional, it's very modern, it's just got all these different things about it that it just puts together and it just keeps it together really well and it just produces amazing things. I think what makes Japanese games so special is they're really imaginative. You've got some really crazy games like Nobi Nobi Boy, then you've got some also really artistically imaginative games like the Final Fantasy series, which is just beautiful to look at. My favourite Japanese game creator is Fumito Ueda, and he created the Ico and Shadow of Colossus games. When I played these games, they just completely blew me away and it was just such an experience, and I think whoever could make something that just touched me in that way is just a genius. So the reason I'm in the games industry is because of Final Fantasy VII. When I played this game, it just made me realise how they can be so much more than running along and jumping, and they can actually involve a really deep story and characters and everything. And when I played it, it just made me think like, I want to work on something that will affect someone the same way that Final Fantasy affected me. And so that's why I'm in the games industry.
I love Japan for the architecture, just the buildings and the way they've mixed modern with still embracing their heritage. It's gorgeous. What makes Japanese games so special is they're epic. The scale of the worlds they create is massive, they're huge, they just seem to go on forever, and the colors they create, they're beautiful to look at. The best game that I think has come out of Japan, I'm gonna have to go with Super Mario Brothers, because just Mario is such an iconic character, and anybody, anywhere, like they don't even have to pick up a game controller to know who Mario is, or Luigi.
You know, whenever I list out my favorite games of all time, I usually rattle off a list of Katamari Damacy, Super Mario 64, Loco Roco, Ocarina of Time, Okami, Parappa the Rapper, Final Fantasy VII, Animal Crossing, and as I'm going through this list, I'm realizing, wow, all my favorite games are Japanese. Why is that? I think what makes Japanese games so special is the incredible creativity. I've never met him, but I really love the games of Keita Takahashi, because there's just no one else like him. His games are insane, which I love. And my favorite games of all time are still the Katamari games, Katamari Damacy and We Heart Katamari, because they're just these worlds that I think about to this day and get the urge to go back to, which I think is a sign of a great game. I do love Japan. I love the kindness of the people, I love the care they bring to their work, and I love the art that they've given the world. I love Japan.
You know what, man, trying to pick the best game out of Japan is like trying to pick the best song. You know, for me, one that has always stayed with me is Shenmue on the Dreamcast. This was a game that was sort of, for its time, this huge, detailed open world, this amazing story, really cool fighting. And the thing I remember about Shenmue is I felt like I was visiting that sort of part of Greater Tokyo when I played the game. It was so detailed that when I first visited Japan about 6 years after that, I thought, you know what, man, I've been here. I've seen houses like this before. I've met people like this before. So for me, Shenmue is a game that has always stayed with me. Not just because it's a brilliant game, but because it gave such a sense of sort of that slice of Japanese life. I'm lucky enough to have visited Japan several times. I love the blend of the ancient history and the modern technology, but it's always the people and the connections I make there that really stay with me. And it's because of those people that I know that Japan is going to overcome this. They're going to overcome, they're going to rebuild, they're going to be stronger than before because they have just some of the most amazing people in the whole world.
Japanese games are special because they sort of made the console game experience mainstream. There were older systems that came before the Nintendo Entertainment System, but Mario made it just sort of mainstream. Like, all my friends were talking about it all of a sudden. People thought video games were dead, but this thing came out that just brought everything back. Trying to choose your favorite game creator from Japan is like almost impossible because there's, you know, so many influential creators. But if I had to choose one, I'd have to choose Fumito Ueda, who made Shadow of the Colossus and Ico, and is working on a new game called The Last Guardian. Aesthetics are so important to games to me. Like, it's the first thing you see and hear, and I really just love his aesthetic. I think it's fantastic, and there's no one else in the world doing what he does. If you can wrap that pretty picture in a great package of gameplay, then, you know, that's when something truly magical happens. I had such a strong experience with the original Legend of Zelda when I was a young child. My parents got it for me because they were going away on a vacation, so I was able to just sort of get sucked into that world. That game just changed everything. It made me want to explore the world around me in a different way. I knew that that's what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. I didn't know if I was going to make games or just figure out a way to play them forever, but I knew when I saw that game, I was like, this is something different. I was just glued to the television, and from then on, I played video games consistently for the rest of my life. So it's been, whatever, 25 years now of just doing that. My idea from a very early age, like 5 years old, of what a video game should be, Japanese game design was almost entirely responsible for that. So I credit the Japanese for making me love video games.
I think part of what makes Japanese games so special is that many Japanese games are preoccupied with beauty in a way that most Western games are not. I think it's impossible for me to pick one Japanese game creator that's my favorite because there are many that have been inspirational to me. But if I had to pick one, I think it would have to be Matsura Masaya because Paraparapa was actually the game that inspired me to start making video games. Japan is a fusion of natural world and technology and a fusion culturally of the distant past and the future in a way that I have never found anywhere else on Earth.
What makes Japanese games so special is that they really invented what I think of as long-form gaming. Gaming that's designed not to like take a quarter and be done with it, but games that you're designed to sit down and get immersed in and play for hours and hours and hours. Who's my favorite Japanese game creator? It's Shigeru Miyamoto because the man led the creation of Zelda, Mario, Metroid, all the things I think that led to what you think of as modern games. He is the father of all of that.
What makes Japanese games so special, I think, is their eclecticism. I mean, I love that, you know, Metal Gear sort of wears my inability to comprehend it as like a badge of honor. I love that it has this sort of playful thing going on that you just really can't see in Western games. I love that we have this 30-year-long investment in the ongoing battle between a plumber and a gorilla, and I love, you know, that there's this game where all you do is roll up all of these strange, eclectic little bits of junk and stuff and make planets out of them. I think that's so amazing and delightfully strange and playful. What I've always loved about Japan is the way their culture kind of reverberates against our own. I mean, I love this sort of collision of aesthetics that arises, you know, when you juxtapose something like Metal Gear Solid and Splinter Cell, or, you know, I love the way that we're kind of perpetually locked in this dance of tribute and homage and, you know, knowing each other and thinking about each other, and I think that's just a really, really beautiful thing. Our thoughts continue to be with the people of Japan during this difficult time. If you would like to contribute to the relief effort, please donate to the Red Cross. Thank you.
I grew up back when Sega and Nintendo were going at it, and so the games from both of those companies pretty much defined what video games were for me. And the Japanese sensibilities that are always evident in a lot of the titles that come out of that country still kind of push those buttons for me. So I've had the privilege to go to Japan for over a decade now, and I've come to love that country in a bunch of different ways every time I go. Because I think, like a lot of people, the very first time you go to Japan, the games get you there, right? Especially in our industry, it's like, oh my God, you know, I get to go where the games come from. And for somebody that grew up the way that I did, loving Japanese games, this was a huge thing.
I think Japanese games, probably more than any other gaming industry in the world, brings to the forefront the special cultural clues and signals that it comes from Japan more than any other. I think if I were to pick one, though, I would pick Final Fantasy on the NES, the first game. You know, in 8th grade, running around with the Light Warriors and picking different things. I think I played through that game like 3 or 4 times. And that experience really made me feel like this was a new medium that I could really wrap my brain around. There's so much culture and differences in the world, and Japan, instead of trying to ignore those differences, brings them to the forefront and is proud of them. That is something that can be lauded, you know, in video games, but also all of their culture.
Japanese games have always had a special place in my heart, mostly because of the innovation and the quirkiness. What I really love is that you can really see the creators' ideas shining through. I love Japanese food. I love Japanese culture, the Japanese aesthetic, Japanese design, but also, you know, I think ultimately the Japanese people are fantastic. It's really difficult to pick one favorite Japanese game creator because there's so many fantastically talented people, but Kojima is someone who I was really looking up to a lot growing up and have been lucky enough to work with. I've gotten to know him personally, and it's great to see that kind of genius in action and to see someone who is still, you know, striving to push the industry even further.
It's a popular answer, I'm sure, but my favorite Japanese games creator is Shigeru Miyamoto from Nintendo. Just his approach to how he designs games and the way he thinks about games, you know, going out into his garden, exploring caves as a child. If I were to make games, I think that would be my approach. It's hard to pick one game as being the best game to ever come out of Japan, but my favorite game is definitely Super Metroid. I'm a longtime Nintendo fanboy, I'll happily admit, but Super Metroid to me is this perfect definition of how a game should play.
I think there's something undefinable about Japanese games. It's a bit magical that no one in the West kind of understands. So there's something always intriguing that I can't quite figure out. So one of my favorite games is Mr. Driller, where you're drilling sort of ceaselessly downwards, and there's something really atmospheric and sort of claustrophobic about that and the threat of things falling on you. And it captures that so well, but in a real kind of game puzzly environment. And that's just an amazing balance of so many things. I think I love Japan for so many reasons, but probably the main reason is the food, which is all just great.
Hi, my name is Philip Kohler, and I work at Game Informer. My favorite Japanese game creator is Goichi Suda, better known as Suda51. He's kind of the insane mastermind behind No More Heroes, Killer 7, games like that. And I think he just embodies the sense of creativity and somebody who's always willing to take a risk. Like, he's not scared of trying something that's never been done before in games. For me, the game that always comes to mind is Final Fantasy VI, and it was the first game that I played where I kind of realized I'm going to be playing video games for the rest of my life, and if possible, I want to have a job involved in video games because it just blew me away with the writing and the depth and the scope, and it was just the first time that I realized how big video games could be.
There are 3 things about Japanese games that make them incredibly special. 1, the hair in the main characters, way better than the hair on anybody else. 2, the weapons in the games, far more awesome than any other game out there. And 3, 2 words, booby physics. I think the best game to come out of Japan is a very hard question, so I'll answer it in this way. I think one of the coolest games to come out of Japan was Final Fantasy VII, because I think it was the first game that I maybe put in more than 40 or 50 hours into, and it was the first game that made me feel like it was totally okay to lock myself in my house for a weekend and play a game. I love Japan because if you've ever been there, the sense of national pride and love that the population has for Japan is one of the most infectious and inspiring things you will ever experience. And because they have coffee machines that have Tommy Lee Jones on the side of them, and that is awesome.
I'm Sam Kennedy, and I'm the editorial director of OneUp.com. My favorite Japanese game creator is probably Tetsuya Mizuguchi. You know, he's the creator of games like Space Channel 5 and Rez. And what I really like about him is that he's kind of pushed the boundaries of what a game can be. So he'll mix, you know, really cool visuals with music and interesting game design. So I think he just really kind of pushes the boundaries of what a game could be. If I think back, you know, the games that really inspired me to get into the game industry were titles like Castlevania, where even though back when I was a kid, the graphics kind of 8-bit sprites, you know, I think I could see what the game designers really were trying to do in those worlds. And for me, it just made such an impression on me as a kid. And I think that got me to want to be part of the games industry and actually write about games and tell more people about why I feel so passionate about games. If you'd like to help with the earthquake relief in Japan, please donate to the Red Cross through our website, gamersheartjapan.com.
What I really love about Japanese games is you never really know what you're going to get. Anything is possible. The imagination and the creativity that goes into them, anything you can think of, they will find a way to make a game out of it.